Hello, my name is Antonio. My topic's on gun control. There's a side that we should repeal it. There's the other side that we should keep it. I'm on the correct side, that we should keep it. My main claim is that abolishing the Second Amendment unarms and exposes law-abiding citizens to harm from criminals. Therefore, we need to protect the Second Amendment from being repealed for safety. I want to clear up a definition. How many of you know what a hot burglary is? Okay, so I'm going to explain it. A hot burglary is a burglary where the people are still within the house or the building that's being robbed by the offender. I want to give some context to the Second Amendment. It was made to protect the citizens against the uprising of a tyrannical government. This country was founded on liberty and freedom, especially oppression from government. Banning guns in the past has had negative effects. Germany, prior to the Holocaust, banned guns and it collected all the guns from its citizens, therefore it left a lot of people exposed to the government, which helped, therefore, to facilitate the process of the Holocaust and also to the fascist uprising of the government during Nazi Germany. Mexico, our neighboring country right next to us, has some of the tightest gun control laws, yet it has some of the highest crime rates in the world. And I want to read my first secondary claim is guns are the most effective manner of protecting against criminals. Professor of Criminology at Florida State University, Dr. Gary Kleck writes, after analyzing data from the Department of Justice National Crime Victimization Survey, in general, self-protection measures of all types are effective in the sense of reducing the risk of property loss in robberies and confrontational burglaries. Compared to doing nothing or cooperating with the offender, the most effective form of self-protection is use of a gun. For robbery, the self-protection measures with the lowest loss rates were among victims attacking the offender with a gun and victims threatening the offender with a gun. For confrontational burglary, attacking with a gun had the second lowest loss rate of 16 self-protection measures, bested only by another mode of armed self-protection, threatening the offender with a non-gun weapon. Two things to take away from this quote. The lowest loss rate for burglaries were among victims that had guns to threaten and offend offenders. The secondary thing to take away from this quote is that for confrontational burglary, victims armed had the second lowest rate of 16 self-protection measures. It really just shows how effective it is to have a gun to protect yourself from robbers and people trying to rob you and steal from you. My secondary point, another point is that in the print Armed Criminal in America, a survey of incarcerated felons, sociologist research professor James D. Wright and sociologist Peter H. Rossi state homes with guns are avoided by an estimated 74% criminals. If you have a gun in your house, there's a higher chance that criminals won't even attempt to break in your house. My second claim is ownership of guns is effective at preventing burglaries and crimes. Dr. Gary Kleck reports guns prevent an estimated 2.5 million crimes a year. If we take away guns, it could possibly rise. It's just a theory. Author, attorney, and political science researcher Dave Koppel and Dr. Gary Kleck report Britain, of all the burglaries in Britain, 59% are hot burglaries, and within the United States, 13% are hot burglaries. And Britain has some of the tightest gun control laws in Europe, and it just really shows that if we tighten our laws on gun control, and if we repeal the Second Amendment, that could possibly increase hot burglaries as in Britain. My third secondary point is repealing the right to bear arms steals away the sense of safety many enjoy. According to Pew Foundation research, 79% of gun owners felt a sense of safety owning guns, and 78% said that they enjoyed owning a gun. An estimated 64% of people living in a home where there is a gun felt safer, reputed by the Pew Foundation research. In conclusion, removal of guns forcibly steals the natural right to a sense of safety of majority gun owners. It exposes law-abiding citizens to more burglaries, and it facilitates the process of a government tyrannical uprising if it does happen, and we should not repeal the Second Amendment. Thank you.
All right, Antonio, let me start with some of the things that are strengths in the argument. I think you've got some good research in the presentation. You cite the authorities pretty regularly. I do think sometimes you need to explain what the inference is that you're drawing from the evidence. There, on one point, it sounded like you were just giving us the evidence instead of a claim, and then it turned out that that was actually just a supporting piece of evidence for your first point, not really the second point that you were getting to. So that was a little bit confusing. To me, the weakest parts of the argument are at the beginning. The contents are not previewed, and your proposition, I think, is problematic because it's got dependent clauses, it's got a hypothetical and a justification built into it, and that's not what you need. There's also this presupposition that somebody's trying to get rid of the Second Amendment. I don't know that anybody's trying to eliminate people's right to keep and bear arms. I do think that there are attempts to restrict access to guns and to require that people who have guns are careful in the way they use them. If those things threaten gun ownership in some way, shape, or form, that needs to be more explicitly stated, and it needs to be explained. I think you get sidetracked a little bit on the historical stuff, and the whole discussion about tyrannical government and the reference to Nazi Germany, I think, don't help you at all. It seems like it's a sidetrack issue. 89% of what you're talking about here is self-defense and personal security issues, and I think that that's where your argument really is well developed, and I think you want to stick to that. I thought, like I said, that you had some good data that you cited. Generally, you cite sources on this. It needs to be put together a little bit more effectively, but your inferences are not unreasonable. The summary was pretty good. Actually, the summary gives a clearer structure to the speech than we got at the beginning of the speech, but we're still basing it on this notion that somebody wants to repeal the Second Amendment, and I don't really think that's where the argument is. It's on other kinds of controls. That's probably where you need to focus a little bit more. All right, thank you.